I'm sure Nigel will cope very adequately. There are no apologies. Declarations of interest, Linda.
Thank you, Leader. I've had some conversations with some of the members already, and I know in the item we have on the EAS, the Education Achievement Service, at item 8, Councillor Clark, we discussed that you've got a personal interest because you are a director, a council-appointed director of the EAS. That's right. And Councillor Jones, you act as the substitute or alternate should Councillor Clark not be able to attend. So there are personal interests for you both to declare there, if that's okay. And I think Councillor Clark also had another personal interest in item 11. That's the revised section 33 agreement for the Gwent Frailty programme. Could you help?
I was appointed by Cabinet to the Gwent Frailty Joint Committee, which is the decision body for the strategic decision body for the Gwent Frailty project. So I'll declare a personal but not prejudicial interest on that item.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think that's all. Thank you, Leader.
Right. Thanks for that, Linda. Now then, on to item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of February from page 5 to 16. We'll go through those. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Somebody move this to a record? Move. Thanks for that. All show. Thank you. On now then to the special meeting of the Cabinet held on the Tuesday the 1st of December. And that's from page 19 to 22, 17 to 22 actually, 19. Page 1, 19, 20, 21 and 22. All agree that it's a true record, please show. Thanks for that. Action sheet, well, there's nothing on there, Nigel, I don't think. Item 6 then is the anti-fraud and corruption policy. This is Peter Williams who's going to come and speak to this. The current policy has been in place since 2011, and we are now taking the opportunity to update and refresh the policy. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much. Quite a short report. Like the leader said, the current policy has been in place since June 2011. No significant changes. The policy forms part of a sort of network of documents and procedures that the Council have, as outlined in Section 8 of the report, including the Constitution, standing orders, codes of conduct, declaration of interest, etc. The policy outlines people's roles and responsibilities in the arrangements to reduce fraud. There's also a statement of intent which outlines the objectives of the authority, i.e. we like to have effective proprietary arrangements in all our matters and effective stewardship of public funds. Section 9 of the policy outlines the approach the authority will take in terms of detection and investigation. The majority of that work falls on officers in my own section, internal audit, where we carry out a programme of audits on an annual basis, reviewing and improving controls. Obviously, in addition to that, when there are specific investigations, we will either carry them out, or if they are benefit fraud-related investigations, there's a designated team within the housing benefit section that undertakes those investigations. The final bit is the appendix to the policy, which outlines the approach taken by employees and members if they suspect an instance of fraud. It's usually a report to your line manager, myself, or some other senior people in the organisation. The policy has been refreshed in consultation with Chief Legal Officer, Assistant Chief Executive Resources and the Head of Human Resources. Cabinet, I'd just like to put that to you in terms of this is the policy, and hopefully recommend that the Cabinet will approve the policy, and I'll answer any questions you may have on the policy. Thank you. Thanks
for that. Members, any questions on the policy? No questions? All agreed the report? Show. Thanks very much, Peter. We're now on to item 7, delivering the corporate plan. I just want to say a few words about this, because there is a change in the way that we've applied this. As we've said at previous Cabinets and Council meetings, this is a new corporate plan. It's been headed by a political vision, and it's a document that clearly outlines our priorities and members. So once Richard Edmonds has finished giving us an overview, I want to call on Councillor Anthony Hunt, who's been primarily responsible for drawing this document up, and I want to congratulate him for all the work that he's done. So over to you, Richard. Let's start there.
Okay, thanks, Leader. And no prizes for guessing I'm delivering this on the Chief Executive's behalf. Members, you'll all be aware that Corporate Plan 3 comes into being on the 1st of April and sets out 3 politically developed priorities for the borough. The Chief Executive, through the development of a business plan, now has to set out the specific activities that will support the delivery of those priorities, as well as the key measures and targets that will ultimately define success. As this is the beginning of the new corporate plan period, the 2016-17 activities and measures have been captured through existing service planning processes. These activities and measures have been grouped together under each of the 3 corporate plan priorities and are attached at Appendix 1. They've been scrutinised at a meeting of all scrutiny committees on the 2nd of March, and the recommendations that arose from that meeting are also attached at Appendix 2. Cabinet will now hold the Chief Executive and all relevant officers to account for the delivery of the stated activities and performance against the measures and targets that have been put forward in support of Corporate Plan 3, and Cabinet are invited to note those activities and agree that this should form the basis of both the Council's forward-facing improvement plan for 16-17 and Part 1 of the emerging business plan. And I'll leave it there, Leader.
So that, Rich. Now then, over to Anthony. Now, I know we've had extensive consultation on this, and Anthony's going to say some words about that.
Okay, and I'd like to thank Ed for the work, and also thank other officers, including Mark Sharwood, for the work they've done on helping develop this corporate plan and helping take it to this stage. As the Leader and as Richard Evans have said, this is the next stage in the development of that corporate plan, taking our political vision document and translating it towards an action plan for officers in the council to work from. I think it's important that is seen to sort of flow through the organisation in that manner. I think it's worth sort of just looking through Appendix 1 very quickly. I won't say a great deal today, partly because don't all cheer at once. My voice is going a little bit today, so I'm not that able to speak for too long. So priority 1 there, the cleaner and greener Torvine. That's cleaner and greener communities and sustainable local environment the residents can be proud of. In Appendix 1 it takes it through what we'll do, how we'll support the community, and what we're asking from the community in return to help us achieve that priority. It then talks about a number of activities, a number of outcomes. Similar with the second priority about raising education attainment, and the third priority about helping safeguard the vulnerable and increase equality and offset the impacts of poverty and disadvantage in our communities. So those 3 are what we put front and centre of the corporate plan vision document, and this document today helps look at both how we will try and implement it in terms of actions and activities, and how we will measure our success, because of course prioritisation is a double-edged sword, if you like, for the areas that are prioritised. I hope they'll see in coming months, and I hope they've already seen, in fact, from the budget this year, the good side of being a priority in terms of, added resources to try and improve performance in the areas. But the double-edged sword, of course, is the expectation from members that extra resource will be reflected in performance. And I think it's key that we keep our eye on that ball. I think we've rightly consulted with the public, and we've got a strong set of priorities that mirror both residents' expectations and views about what's important, and also members' views, both from our post bags as local members, which I think is very important, and our more sort of corporate activities. So now we've got those strong priorities in place, it's key that we both see them through and we measure them, and that we hold officers to account for performance in those areas. The other area that's of course mentioned in the corporate plan that I wanted to mention quickly today is the point about valuing our staff. I think there's 2 ways to look at delivering a corporate plan in an atmosphere of declining resources like we are. The first one is almost to see staff as the enemy and to try and denigrate their terms and conditions, and become, as other councillors in this chamber have said, although thankfully not in the cabinet, become a sort of a lean council. Now, of course, we can't see our job as a a local employment agency, but I think these corporate priorities, all three of them, will only be achieved if we work with our staff, if we value our staff, if we treat them well, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who deliver the services to the public at the coalface. I think you'll see with our decision to award the money for our teaching assistants' professional registration fees, and our decision related to the living wage, as well as our partnership approach that we take to working with trade unions and with staff, that's something we're very committed to as a council. I think that's very important, both because it's the right thing to do, but also because it's the only way I think we will deliver on these priorities. So in summary, I'd commend this report to you. I think they're the right priorities to take it forwards. I think we've tested that with the public, that they view that as the case as well, and I look forward to future reports to see how this prioritisation is bearing fruit in the areas that we've set aside.
Well done, Anthony. Right then, any comments of members? Any members want to make a comment? If not, then recommendations are on page 42, please show. Thanks very much. Can I just say there's no reflection on this particular item, but somebody have brought this in. Can I just show members that if we produce everything, whether it's on education or indeed any other discipline, this is a sort of document that we need to produce for all members to have. Now, we can't do that, obviously, and that's why we've got a shorter version, but there is a copy of this in the members' room which anybody can read, indeed, or any member of the council, actually. But to just look at that, and this is going to present all sorts of problems, not only in the size of this, but we've got to come on at some stage to the discussion around translating it into Welsh, which is going to mean an even bigger. I shouldn't have perhaps done that at the beginning rather than at the beginning of your... Anyway, over to you, Debbie.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to present the business plan. If I take you through the report, but if it's okay just to start by saying that the report that I have submitted and the document that you have there is an absolutely full and transparent look at absolutely everything that we do in the service. And I don't think previously that Cabinet have ever seen that level of detail. So I'll pick up on some of the main points, if that's okay, as we go through. Okay. The purpose of the report, as you can see, is to seek approval for the Education Achievement Service Business Plan for the next 3 years. And in 3.1, you can see the key messages being that obviously this is a requirement from the Welsh Government, and this is the third iteration of the plan that you members will have seen since the plan was first submitted in 2013. The plan, you can see on 4.1, it sets out the overall targets for the EAS region, working in very close partnership with the 5 local authorities that we serve. And the outcomes are based on an analysis of pupil-level data right across the region in the 5 local authorities. Section 5 and Section 6 of the actual document that you received actually indicate the target section and really the 3-year summary of where we're going as an organisation on behalf of our local authorities. 4.2, I think, is an important point to raise. The business plan sets out 4 priorities, and these are the absolute core of what we aim to deliver through our commission from yourselves. They are obviously to improve the attainment for those pupils that are in receipt of free school meals and to narrow the gap with their peers who are non-free school meals, to raise attainment in English, Welsh language and mathematics. Section 5 of the report will be of particular interest, I'm sure, to yourselves. This sets out the annex section, which again we're required to produce for Welsh Government. And this is in addition to all the core services provided in the plan. And this sets out the high-level targets for your local authority, for Torfaen. And it sets out the high-level targets for the next 3 years that have been agreed with your Chief Education Officer, and also pupil attendance. It also details the specific enhanced support that we will give to your schools across your local authority, and also some bespoke programmes that we'll provide to your local authority based on need. So again, this year, this is even tighter than last year, and we are directing more resource into the local authority, particularly around literacy, numeracy, and digital competency. You'll see on 5.2 the financial arrangements and the core contribution that yourselves make into the EAS. And again, this level of funding, this for the next financial year represents a 3% efficiency saving on the previous year. 5.3 just pulls out the main Welsh Government policies that the plan obviously aligns to. Most of those are education-based, and of course around the new curriculum orders. I think it's important to say that the consultation on the document has been live since December 2015, and again it's been consulted widely within your local authority. I know your Education Scrutiny Committee has given some very clear feedback, and that had been actioned, and also it's been through your Children and Young People's Partnership Board. It's also been consulted widely with head teachers across your local authority, governors, and of course through the joint executive group where your cabinet member sits. Just to pick up on the point, just as an aside almost, around the Welsh translation, we will arrange for that to be done. So I wouldn't see that as a risk to the local authority when it's obviously hopefully agreed. So the business plan will be implemented if agreement is received today from April the 1st, and we will be held to account for particularly the progress within the LA Annex for the next academic year by the joint executive group and through your Chief Education Officer and Scrutiny Committee. So really in conclusion, it's really to bring the plan here to be endorsed by yourselves for the next 3 years.
Right, thank you for that presentation. It is a big document, enormous amount of information in there. I'm going to bring in David Joel in a minute. Have you got anything to say, Richard? No? Over to David then, who's the Cabinet Member for Education.
Right. I started off with a view of the EAS several years ago that was a bit caustic, cynical, even, and initially my view hadn't changed a great deal, but certainly in the last 18 months or so it's gone on an upward journey of some significance and velocity. I have to say that this isn't just because Debbie Hartsfeld is now the leading light there, because I think the improvement, in my view, of the EAS certainly started that journey under the auspices of Steve Davis as well, and I think he's to be commended for changing my view in that sense. I'm sold on the EAS now, where it wasn't, say, 3 years ago. I think they've made enormous strides in those areas that I particularly was concerned about, and that was scrutiny. I think the pathways to scrutiny are clearer and sharper and exist at several levels. But I'm more concerned and more interested in and more pleased by the progress that's being made, and observably so, in terms of the progress that you can see on the ground through the activities of EAS personnel, challenge advisors and the like. And when you consider, if you're a cynic like me and you look at value for money, effectiveness, efficiency, what we have in the last couple of years and what we are looking at now is improved quality of service, and at the same time a reduction, albeit marginally, in the amount of money that we are paying. So you put the two together, and that's a definition of, in my book, certainly it's a definition of efficiency. So I think that Debbie and her team are to be commended. I would hope that the rest of the Cabinet would take the similar view. I don't expect that the rest of the Cabinet ploughed through this particular document, because you'd have to have a team of scientists to help you with it. But certainly the exposure that I've had to this and the meetings that I've had, where we've been allowed to forensically examine, albeit verbally, the way in which this document has been put together, and indeed the essence of the document, I'm satisfied that it represents good value for money, and as I said earlier on, I hope everybody else around the table comes to the same conclusion and will endorse this particular document, as I should expect they would.
Thanks for that, Dave. Thanks, first of all, for your way you presented your report, and I do know that Dave has taken a lot of time in reading and understanding this, and obviously, as the Cabinet Member for Education, I've got a better grasp than most other people. So, any other comments? Anthony?
Just like to echo much of that, really, and to welcome the sort of the improved approach of formulating this business plan and sort of presenting it very openly. I think it's a good way for us as a council to see that we're getting value for money from the service, and we look forward to working with you to help raise education attainment across the borough.
And I'm sure that's a view shared by all. Any other comments? If not, all agree the recommendation, please show. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Debbie. On now then to item 9, which is the Heads of the Valley Greening and Cleaning project, Greening Waste project. This is Duncan Smith. There you are. Duncan, over to you.
Sorry. Members will be aware of the various contracts that are being let to deal with waste. Recently, Cabinet approved joining with Tomorrow's Valley, which is to deal with black bin waste. Also, recently, a consortium of Torvine, Blind Gwent and Monmouthshire to deal with food waste. This deals with green waste. Members will recall that there was a contract that Blind Gwent and Torvine were involved with between 2008 and 2012. Prohibition notice was served on the contractor. As a result of that, our contract to deal with green waste is with Viridor at the Waste Recycling Centre. And that runs until March the 14th. The proposal is that a consortium, Blind Gwent, ourselves, Monmouthshire and Newport, procure a contract for green waste for the four authorities. You'll see at paragraph 5.3 the green waste contracts for those various authorities lie within a 24-month window, so there is a logic to the authorities working together. The MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, is attached at Appendix 1, and the conditions that apply are at 5.6 of your report. So I recommend that we proceed with the other three partners to procure green waste contract.
Thank you, Duncan. John, you want to make a comment?
Nothing too much to say on that, Chair, except that we've been down this road, I think, a couple of times on the residual waste, as Duncan said, and on the food waste. And this now is for the green waste that we've got an interim arrangement at this moment in time with the contractor who organises our household waste. What do we call it? Household, the HRWC. And so we're covered anyway for the disposal of our green waste until such time as this kicks in. But it's nice to see that Newport have joined us now, so there's four authorities involved now, and nice to see that collaboration. So I would move the report.
Good. We'll get to the magic 5 eventually. Any other comments anybody want to make? If not, all agree the recommendation, show. Thank you very much. Next item is item 10, which is the Place Efficiency Audit, and I'm assuming that this is going to be presented by Julian Devine. Come on down, Julian. Over to you, Julian.
Good morning, everybody. I come here today, obviously, to seek approval of the Place Efficiency Action Plan 2016-17. First of all, the first assessment took place in 2012, and now we are looking to do the second assessment from Welsh Government, as play became a statutory requirement in 2014. The assessment has looked at a wide factor in relation to play and play provision across the borough for all ages. The assessment took into account population, open spaces, parks, countrysides, transport initiatives, strategic links and policies towards play, play provision in the hearts of communities and safeguarding of play provision. Also taking into account the work and support for children with disabilities, which we are also aware how that is saving quite a large amount to social care and housing in regards to the support we offer to these children. There is a separate report that's been done around that piece of work, if anybody wishes to see this. To make sure the piece of work was done, we consulted with over 90 partners to make sure we had the right action plan going forward. We consulted with children, young people, play and recreational workforce, as well as general public. And this shaped and planned the action plan for 2016-17. When writing the action plan, we were aware no additional money came from Welsh Government. So we looked at, we were very creative how we put this action plan together and looked at people's work plans, what was already there, so there was no additional cost to take it forward. This has to be agreed by Cabinet, obviously, and that's why I'm sat here now to put it forward. That's it.
Thank you very much for that, Julian. I'll bring other people in. I just want to make a couple of comments on this one because I believe this is one of the most valuable things that we do, and I know that other members are going to pile in after me. Quite recently we had your awards evening. We know how difficult it is. We know the sort of people you deal with. We know how complex it is to bring all those people together. So I personally believe that you're doing a wonderful job. I wish you well. Over to other members. Who else wants to make a comment?
Congratulations to Julian and everything he's doing. But under the consultation on item 5, it says, what has the Children and Young People's Consultation told us? And it says there 43% felt that the parks and play areas in the community were of a good standard. Only 43% out of 100% is quite a concerning figure. I know years ago that the council were responsible for it, and that's since gone because all the housing stock have gone to alternative providers. And, years ago we used to pay for park play equipment out of the housing revenue account. That's right, and we haven't got the housing revenue account. We haven't had it for some time. So other providers have got that. So, I think we need to get a really good partnership with the housing providers to ensure that there are more quality play areas within the borough. Thanks.
We'll all agree with that. David Daniels?
Did Julian want to answer that? Or?
Just to say on that, we are working very close with all partners. We've got a good relationship with different partners, and we are taking on board everything the children and young people have said. One of the big things as well was about feeling safe in these spaces as well. So we're engaging by putting more workers actually in these parks, etc. Because it wasn't just about the actual static provision; it was about them feeling safe there. So by putting workers there to tackle those sort of things, we're hoping the next time round it will be a higher percentage.
Yeah, I just wanted to pay tribute to Julian, Andrea and the play team really for conducting the place efficiency assessment. I took part in it as well and it was excellent, really taking on board everybody's views. And I'm just once again proud of the service that we've got. It's the most accessible, it's possibly, I believe it's the best in Wales personally, but I'm biased. So thanks once again.
Anthony?
No, I think that's a good interlude because I think sometimes people can, especially if people haven't lived elsewhere in Wales or in Britain, take for granted some of the things that the play team do in Torfaen. The play schemes are excellent in my view, and other services that you provide for our young people, and I think we've been right as a council to try and protect that for our young people as much as we can, even though it's an area that increasingly across Britain, especially if you look over the border into England, has been attacked as local authorities are forced to make big cuts in non-statutory services. So I think it's right that we've done that, and I think that's something that should be valued. I just take up on a point that you mentioned there about wider sort of social issues with regard to play and whether people feel safe. I think that's something that we need to do work on across the country, not just in Torvine. It's a wider contextual thing, I think, about how we rebuild society where, you know, when many of us grew up, that we could play more freely and safely out in the community, because there were people around the community looking out for younger people playing, and how we try and build that back into our society, I think, is something that we have to answer as a country, not just in Torvine.
Right, well done.
Thanks, Julian. Thanks for the report. I don't know whether you realise this, but you've certainly impacted in a very good way in our communities. We have less antisocial problems from the children of the age that you look after. So it really is having an impact, and the work that you do is tremendous. I think you definitely need more funding, and I know it's a difficult time to be saying now, but unless we put money into the newer schemes and newer workload, I think we might see further on down the line that we will suffer as an authority. So if there's any hope of any chance of any money, and we meet often, we talk about the finances, then I think this is where we should be putting it, into your play schemes. Well done, Julian, and to your staff, and to the volunteers.
Any other members? John?
Can I just say, notwithstanding on the question that Lewis asked about playground equipment and all that, I mean, that's difficult to get. But I think tribute should be paid about particularly in my own area of Thornhill, really, where you encourage street play. Where there is no equipment. We've got a mugger there, I know that, but you do encourage street play, and both on the street and in the parks. And I think that is an enormous benefit to some of the children who are at a loose end in estates like Thornhill, like Trevethan, like many other estates, where kids are at a loose end, they don't know what to do, and you go and you organise them, and it gives them that discipline. So great tribute should be played on that issue, and so totally and utterly supportive of your service.
Well done. David?
Just one final comment, just coming back on Gwynaira's point. I think we recognise as a Cabinet it's a preventative service. It promotes community cohesion. So throughout the budget setting process, that was recognised, which is why we largely protected the play service, because we prioritise it as a service. And yeah, I would hope that would continue in the future, because, as my colleagues have said, it's a preventative service that stops crime, promotes community cohesion, promotes education outside of school, which is most important. So yeah, it's an incredibly valuable service, and I hope other authorities take our example and implement it in their own area.
Right, so the message is congratulate your team, and indeed all those that work with you on doing an excellent job. It's very much valued by the Council. See the recommendations, please show. Thank you very much. Thank you, Julian. On now then to item 11, which is the revised Section 33 agreement for the Gwent Frailty Programme. This is Keith Rutherford. Are you coming, Keith?
Morning, members. I think this is a fairly straightforward report, and it's asking the members to note the development of the new Section 33 agreement, which is the agreement which allows the pooling of the budgets between Aneurin Bevan University Hospital and the 5 local authorities. The report gives the details of that new Section 33. There's been 2 external reviews of the Frailty Programme, one by Cordus Brighton, one by the Wales Audit Office, and the new Section 33 takes on board the recommendations that those reviews made. One of those being the recruitment of a programme director, which will take day-to-day responsibility for the operational workings of that programme. The further developments being the development of the regional governments, the Greater Gwent Health, Social Care and Wellbeing Partnership, which is developed under the new Act. The report also reflects that ABUHB have funded 73% of the programme, in excess of £6 million, and that any savings that may be made, if are made, that any payback should be reflected in that sort of percentage. And I think that's all I've really got to try and answer any questions members have.
Richard?
I don't have a question, it's a comment. I think when Frailty started, it was a brave new world to get 5 local authorities and a health board to share money and finance various parts of it. Didn't really know what it was going to achieve. The hospitals were looking for less bed days. Social care was looking for less money being spent on social care packages. Once the genie was let out of the bottle, Frailty has morphed into something completely unrecognisable from what it was, and I sincerely dispute anybody who tags the name Frailty to it. I think it's been a success, and I think it's been a forerunner in many respects to the new legislation coming in April the 1st, where we are better suited than most areas to implement Section 9 of the Act. Naturally, it's morphing now, as Keith said, into the Greater Gwent Health Social Care Joint Partnership, or some extremely long name like that, which I hope they'll morph into a smaller name. And this puts us in good stead for it, so I recommend that Cabinet notes the report.
Good, thanks for that. Any other comments? Any members want to make a comment on the report? If not, then you see the recommendations, please show. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Keith. On now to item 12, which is the disposal of land and buildings in Station Road, Griffithstown. This is Victor. Over to you, Victor.
Good morning. The written report itself is quite long, but I'll try and summarise the issues. The reason why it's long is because the issue runs back to 4 years ago, when we brought the matter of the disposal to Cabinet seeking approval for the disposal, which was granted. There is a building on the land which at the time Cabinet expressed aspiration for it to be relocated elsewhere to continue to be used for railway purposes. We tried to find suitable parties to take the building. There wasn't anybody at the time. But fortunately, as time has lapsed with the transaction, the Dean of Forest Railway Company has come forward and is interested in the building. However, at the same time, there is also another party that has made an offer to buy the building and retain it on site, but buy only part of the land. So that's the reason really why this is coming back to Cabinet, to resolve that conflict, because there are two conflicting uses for the building, either retaining it in situ or having it relocated for rail purposes. The implication of keeping it in situ and selling for the proposed use as a cafe is that the site is fragmented. You get and the potential buyer for the whole land, who is an adjoining landowner, would not be interested in acquiring only part of the land. They can only acquire the whole, they've said. So we'll be left with a portion of the land that we can't really use for anything else, which doesn't have access, independent access from the highway. We get a lower capital receipt. On the other hand, if we sell the whole site, we get a larger capital receipt. The building is relocated, which is in line with the original aspiration of Cabinet. And also, the proposed use is residential, which is in line with the allocation that is in the LDP for housing. The use of a cafe would be a bit more speculative. It will be subject to planning, which may or may not be granted. So the recommendation that we're presenting is for the disposal to adjoining landowner, in line with the original decision of Cabinet, and to authorise the relocation of the building by Dean of Forest Railway Company to the Forest of Dean. The implication of those recommendations, if accepted, is that we reject the offer of 50,000 which was made for the building and part of the site. And the final recommendation is for any other matters arising from either the disposal or the relocation to be delegated to the Deputy Leader for determination. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Complicated disposal. Shame that we couldn't have retained that. There you are. Over to you, Anthony, and then I'll bring David in.
This is one that certainly I and other members look at with a tinge of regret. There's a number of competing issues that don't sit well together, that cause tension with a decision like this. You know, there's a need to stop the whole area, that whole strip of land, becoming an eyesore. On the other hand, it would have been good to see the building used in the community. On the other hand, it's good to see the building be used for railway purposes. The offer, as you say, was received for part of the land, and that's a problem that's exacerbated, as you say, if part of the land was left vacant with no access. That could become an eyesore and could become a problem for the wider area. I'm glad that you said that officers work to try and find a compromise between the two competing applicants or two competing people who made an offer, but unfortunately that's not been necessary. So you know, with reluctance, I accept the report and hope that we can perhaps work with the other party to see if an alternative facility could be used to provide a cafe facility in the vicinity at some point. Whether we could work with her and speak with her and maybe invite her in to see if that's possible in the future, then that would be welcome. But I accept the recommendations of the report.
Dave, that's your area.
It is regrettable because I thought the application for the retention of the building on site for the use of a cafe, and certainly my understanding for this use was that it had all sorts of positive implications, not least a couple of people would be employed there. And I think it is a service that could be developed into something quite meaningful, particularly with the development of South Sebastopol already underway. I echo the last comments of Anthony, and that is that if this is going to go through with the recommendation, that we perhaps ought to sit down with this lady and explore the possibility of finding alternative sites or site for her venture, because I think that it is a really worthwhile one. I'm not entirely satisfied that everything that could have been done or should have been done has indeed been done in terms of reconciling the leftover bits of the land that, to use Victor's language, would constitute an eyesore. I'm not entirely convinced that we couldn't have got around that, but I bow to superior understanding and knowledge of these things. And regrettably, I would support the recommendations, but I would even more strongly support the suggestion of Anthony's that we act positively in terms of trying to encourage this lady to think perhaps of an alternative site, and perhaps we could be of some assistance in that direction. But it is a regrettable situation, because I thought when this first came to my attention that it was a first-class idea and a first-class solution to the building being left where it is. Now, I understand that moving it to the Forest of Dean or whatever in connection with some kind of railway enthusiasm going on there, it means that this building will be retained for the purpose in some way that it was originally built, but in that sense it could have been left alone where it is, because it was originally intended for the railway in Griffithstown. It has historical resonance locally. It would have been kept on and retained in the site that it was originally built on. All sorts of good things going on there, but I understand that there are greater considerations here, so it is regrettable that I would have to support the recommendation.
Just to confirm, the railway building was initially offered to Pontypool and Glenavon Railway to try and keep it locally, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, the first organisation called was Glenavon Railway Company. They would have been interested in the building, but they were unable to raise the funds to relocate the building. We then contacted St. Fagan's Museum, who again would have been interested, but they just acquired a building similar to this one literal weeks before, so we're just a little bit late. So we did make efforts more locally before the Forest of Dean came along.
Good. Right. So we give everyone locally an opportunity to purchase it. However, we are where we are, and we have to make a decision. So all agree the report show. Thanks very much. Now then, that's the last item on the agenda. So I'll close the meeting.